the real unemployment rate. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I'm still working through my morning coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article written by Jason Murphy on news.com.au discussing the unemployment rate. That, if you haven't been following, is at 7.1%. Let's see if I can bring up that chart. You can see here how it's shot up quite dramatically. But that's only from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Now, it wasn't until I started making these videos and people were saying, look at Roy Morgan, about a year or a year and a half ago now, where I discovered their alternative methodology for measuring unemployment and just some criticisms they have with the methodology used by ABS. And I tend to prefer their numbers because I suspect, even though they're higher and they don't paint as rosy a picture about the economy, they're probably a little bit more accurate. They've got unemployment at 14.8% at the moment, actually improving from April at 15.3%. But they have underemployment at 9.7%, which has gotten worse from 9.4%. So the combined underemployment and unemployment rate, also known as the underutilization rate at the ABS, they consider it as 24.5% of the workforce. 24.5% of the workforce. That's very significant. We can scroll back here to their data. When did they look, Jan to March 2020, it was at 19.1, so pretty high there too. 14.5. This is the underutilization. 2008, 12.4. So here we go. We had the GFC in 2008, and you can see it climbing up to 19, 20%. Looks like it peaked at 20% in 2014, and went slowly down from there. So if you can look up their website, have a look. You've got their methodology that they describe the difference between the two approaches, the ABS and Roy Morgan. I think in some ways ABS needs to ensure that their data can line up with historical data so they can make their trends and analysis. But I prefer the higher figure. I think that gives us a more accurate appreciation of what's happening in the economy. But let's have a look at this article written by Jason, because he adds a few interesting things to it. So, the unemployment figure of 7.1% doesn't show everyone who's lost their job. The official unemployment rate is currently at 7.1%, but the huge number of Australians now without a job expose the myth about the dole, and it'll be forever known as the dole by most Australians. Unemployment shot up in the month of May to 7.1%. That doesn't seem terribly bad. Aren't we supposed to be in the middle of a crisis off the scale of the Great Depression? What's going on, he asks. The answer is how unemployment is measured. Lots of Australians have stopped looking for work, and that means they don't get counted as unemployed. Well, yes, if you step away, if you give up looking for work, then you're not participating. That's the participation rate, and that's taken a dive as well. That's probably the most concerning thing, because if people, lose hope, give up, you get scarring in the economy where people just, no, I've had it, stepping out. And maybe that's just some people need some time to recover. They need some time to heal. They need a few months to just, feel like crap, sort themselves out, and then dust themselves off, step up and go in again. But some people, that never happens. As the next graph shows, Aussies dropped out of the labour force at a massive rate in April and May. A labour force participation rate plummeted, falling far lower than it was during the 2008 global financial crisis. I mean, there you go. A participation rate, what was over 66%, so quite high, has just dove under 63. Labour force participation matters. If you're not looking for work, you don't get counted as unemployed. That makes sense. We don't aim to count every retired person, full-time student, or stay-at-home parent as unemployed. To get counted as employed, you have to actively look for work. And what would happen if we tweaked the statistics slightly? As the next graph shows, if we pretend the labour force participation rate did not fall and mark everyone who lost their job as unemployed, the Australian unemployment rate would have been over 11% in May. 11% in May. It's kind of getting closer to what we're seeing from the Roy Morgan methodology, isn't it? That is much worse than the 7.1%. It's the worst result in nearly 2 decades, but 11.4% will be worse than the 1991 recession. What if we added all the JobKeeper people who weren't working to that figure as well? And this is why Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, is saying he's ignoring the percentages and is just focusing on the hundreds of thousands of people that have lost their jobs for this very reason. These percentages don't paint the full picture. When you've got 800,000 people without a job, that's the full picture. That's the big issue. Now, this is important. This article does not imply or insinuate a grand conspiracy. It's normal for labour force participation to fall in bad times, and lower participation always moderates measured unemployment. It's just that this time it has happened so fast. So to understand the unemployment rate at this peculiar point in history, it is vital to know how the numbers are measured. So not unemployed and not working. The next chart shows how Australia is divided up. We have an adult population of almost 21 million, with 13 million of us in the labour force and 7.7 million of us are not. In the first half of the year, hundreds of thousands of Australians lost their jobs. You might expect that when people lose their jobs, they go straight into the unemployment category. Some do, but that's not always the case. As the red arrows indicate, some of them end up not in the labour force. So you can see here, employed full-time, employed part-time, unemployed. So they're jumping over to not in the labour force. There's 3 big reasons people will have dropped out of the labour force. When there aren't many jobs on offer, many people naturally get discouraged from searching. With the virus running rampant, people are naturally nervous about heading to interviews. Under the new pandemic rules, it is possible to collect unemployment benefits without looking for work. And wait till that changes. A lot of people are going to get a real shock. So isn't the unemployment rate just everyone on the dole? Many people are surprised you can't measure unemployment by counting people on the dole. But here's the thing. You can get the dole if you're working a few hours a week. Meanwhile, many unemployed people don't bother to register for the dole. This leads to a surprising fact. Most unemployed people are not on the dole, and most people on the dole are not unemployed. This Venn diagram shows what I'm talking about. There were just 165,400 Australians who were both unemployed and on New Start in 1718. New Start is now known as Job Seeker. It'll always be that, always. So there you go. That's interesting, isn't it? Instead of looking at who's on the dole, the Australian Bureau of Statistics measures unemployment with a survey. This is the world's best practice. It is what the International Labour Organization recommends and what all the major countries do. The ABS is not mucking around. Collecting data through surveys is what they do, and they can get them to be very accurate. They ask people if they worked, and if they say no, they ask them if they look for work, and if they say yes to that, they are counted as unemployed. From this, we measure the unemployment rate. So what does the future hold? As the year goes on, a lot of Aussies will get back to work. And as the economy improves, the participation rate will lift also. The hard grind of looking for a job will start up again. People who are currently out of the labour force will polish up their resumes, hit the jobs website and try to find themselves a job. What this will mean is that the unemployment rate will potentially go up as the economy starts to get better. It sounds paradoxical, but when you understand how the unemployment rate is measured, you realize it's actually good news. And he's right there. Once confidence returns, once more people start participating in the workforce, you will see a increase in unemployment. But I tend to prefer the methodology used by Roy Morgan. I mean, one of the things is if you worked 1 hour during their survey period, you're considered employed. It should be meaningfully employed. It'd be worrying to see how many people are earning enough money to support themselves. Well, a lot aren't if they're on the dole as well. So what do you all think, everyone? What do you think this participation rate? I mean, it's completely understandable. I mean, who's going to be looking for work when the economy's shut down? If you want to get a retail job, you can't. Everything's shut down. It's starting to open up. Once we open the borders, it will improve. Hopefully, if tourism returns, even to some extent, more people will get into work. We'll have to see. We will have to see. As always, please Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.